So far we covered four, four sifat. Would anyone like to review them? So, no problem. In the email I sent a chart. So let me share that one actually first. No problem. Uh, yeah. So this will be review. So if you see sifat, they are divided into lazima and arida. Lazima means permanent, and arida means temporary. Permanent meaning that that quality is always found in the letter. And arida, temporary, means some cases the quality is found in the letter, some cases it's not. Under lazima, we have mutadadda, ghayr mutadadda, right? So there are total 17 lazima, 17 permanent qualities. Out of those 17, 10 are pairs. There are 10 which have opposites with each other. So 5 pairs of mutadadda. Mutadadda. This one. Yeah, mutadadda. Opposite. Yeah. 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 So, yeah, 10 have opposites, and the other 7 do not have opposites. So, if one letter has one of the غير متضادة, it cannot be the other one, and vice versa. Okay. And underneath, so let's go review them. The first pair is hams and jahar. Okay? So this has to do with flowing of the air to the makhraj, right? So for example, the letter fa, when you pronounce it like f, like fa, then there's air flowing out of the makhraj. Right? What's the makhraj? The lip and the teeth. Fa. So that means fa has hams. It does not have jahar. So the way to memorize which letters have, let me go back to the other slide. Yeah. Okay. So I put the harakas here, so we can memorize this. فَحَثَّهُ شَخْصٌ سَكَتْ. فَحَثَّهُ شَخْصٌ سَكَتْ. These letters which are in this sentence, these are all the letters which have hams. Fa, ha, tha, ha, etc. So what is not in this list? For example, ba, right? So ba does not have hams. That means it has jahar. So when you say like na'budu, there's no air coming out of the makhraj. You don't say na'bu, bu, right? Na'bu, or dal, right? Na'budu instead of budu, right? Ta and dal, they have the same makhraj, pronounced from the same place. Ta, da. Ta has air coming out, dal does not have air. So that's how you differentiate. Right? So all the other letters, any letter of hams, all the other letters will have jahar. So that's how sifat mutadadda work, opposites. So if you just memorize all the letters of hams, then you know all the others are jahar. Similarly, shidda and rakhawa. So shidda means when you pronounce the letter, the sound does not flow. Means you'll hear it once, but you won't hear it flowing. For example, like dal. If you hold the makhraj, you won't hear it continuously. Like ed, because of the pressure, the closeness of the makhraj, you don't hear it flowing. As opposed to fa, like we just said, right? If you hold it, f, you hear the sound. For dal, for jeen, for qaf, aq, right? Ab, you don't hear it flowing. And the way to memorize that is ajid qatin bakat. Ajid qatin bakat. So if shidda is opposite of sound, that means all the others have flowing sound. And I've listed them out here in the slide. For example, ghain, right? غير المغ, right? غير المغضوب, instead of like مغضوب, yeah? غير المغضوب. And dad also is letter of rakhawa. Although when we pronounce it, we may think that it does not have rakhawa. What that means is غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. It's not as clear, but there is a sound flowing there. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Likewise, all the other letters. Tha, ha. Okay. And then between shidda and rakhawa, there are some letters which they're not fully shidda, they're not fully rakhawa. So that is these 5 letters. Lin Umar. Lam, Noon, Ain, Mim, Ra. So when you pronounce them, the sound flows, but not through the same makhraj. For example, what's the makhraj of the Ain? What's the makhraj of the Ain? Anyone remember? The throat, right? The throat. Ain. Middle of the throat. So when you say na'budu, iyyaka na'budu, na'budu. Yeah. فعال لما يريد. فعال. Okay. So that's just review. So before we go on, I actually will need to take a short break. Okay? Apologize for that. But about a 5-minute break. And then we can start the new lesson. And we will extend the class a little bit after 1, so we can make up. So, is Brother Attar there? Okay, just let him know that we'll take a short break. So. Okay. Okay, inshallah. So, uh, for shidda and rakhawa, either the sound flows from the makhraj or it doesn't flow. So you won't be able to hear it. These five letters, they're in between, right? So for example, lam or noon. Let's look at noon. The makhraj of noon is the tip of the tongue touching up, right? Noon. Inna. But when you hold it, now it goes to the nose. Inna. Right. So that's why it's between shidda and rakhawa. It's rakhawa because the sound is continuing, but it's shidda because it's not continuing from the makhraj, it's continuing from somewhere else. And likewise for all these letters. Yeah, rakhawa is it, like the flowing of the sound. Yeah, like softness, and shiddat, right? Yes. So this is where we stopped last week. So now we still have few more pairs. So we did 4 sifat. This is an important sifa, isti'la and istifal. So isti'la from ulu, right? Ala. It means to be raised, right? To be high, up. And istifal, like sufla, right? وَكَلِمَةُ اللَّهِ هِيَ الْعُلْيَا. Right? Yeah. And opposite is sufla, to be low. So this is talking about the position of the tongue. Isti'la is the back of the tongue is raised. And istifal would be the opposite. The back of the tongue is flat. It's lowered. Yeah, lowered. And it's raised to create a heavy sound. So remember what I mentioned. I mentioned this many times. Letters like qaf, dad, dha, ta, we'll call them heavy. Why? Because instead of a, like ya or ba, they have a heavier sound like qa, kha, right? So that heavy sound is not from the lips. It's not from like khwa, right? Or da. It's from isti'ala, which is raising of the back of the tongue. Isti'ala. So when you understand this, then you'll no longer try to create a heavy sound by using the lips. You won't say twa or like tui, right? Or dui. You won't say dui, you'll say di. So what I'm doing is a few things. One is touch the tongue to the makhraj, like dad is the side, da. Even when you're doing kasra, right? Di, and raise the back of the tongue. That's the two things. Touch the makhraj, raise the back of the tongue. Remove the lips from it. Da, di, du, right? Kha, kha, khi, khu, kha. It's not kha or ta or like, for example, sad, right? A lot of us may say like swad, right? Or like qaf, sa. What's the makhraj of the sad? Same as the seen. Sa, 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 sa. So here are the letters of isti'ala. You have kha, sad, dad, ghain, ta, qaf, and dha. For each of these with the fatha, you'll notice that it's not a sound, right? It's a. Kha, sa, da, gha, ta, qa, dha. So that's a heavy sound. And the way to memorize it is this phrase, khussa daghtin qidh. Khussa daghtin qidh. So what does that mean? That means every other letter is light. So heavy and light. So ba, right? If you go to the alphabet, for the letters of istifal, where the tongue is lowered, sometimes people make some of these letters heavy. How is that being done? That's because the tongue is raised when it should be lowered. For example, ayn. Ayn is a light letter. What I mean is, it's not a, right? It's a, right? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So it's light in that sense. Yeah, it's strong because you have to use your throat and put pressure, but it's light. A. So if you yes, yes, definitely. If you notice that you're creating too much of heavy sound in any letter, just try to relax the tongue and put it low. For example, um, like kaf, right? قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ instead of kafirun. Yeah, ka. Like letter ya. Instead of ya أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ, you say ya أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ. If you say ya, that means the tongue is a little raised. Put it back down. So all these letters, all of these letters, they're going to be light. So I'll go through them. Right? Hamza, a, ba, ta, tha, ja, ha, da, tha. Ra is unique because it has some more details. But technically it's light. But when it has a fatha, it'll be a little heavier. But you know, for the scope of this class, we will still consider it a light letter. Za, sa, sha, a. Right? There's no ghain. Ghain is previous. Right? A, gha, fa. Right? For example, qaf and kaf, what's the difference? Qaf is heavy. So you say qa. Kaf is light. Ka. Lam. Right? Lam is light. Except, do you know when lam is heavy? For example, yes, in the name of Allah, right? So, la ilaha illallah. That lam is heavy, right? The tongue is raised. La ilaha illallah. All the other lams are light. La ilaha illallah. Even in illallah, right? You have one lam, light, and then one is heavy. So you have to take special care to make sure you separate that. Pronounce the letters light, pronounce the other letters heavy. Illa, instead of saying illallah, you've made both of them heavy. Illallah, right? Illallah. If you were to visualize the tongue, it would be like this. Illal, right? It would be raising. Illallah. Illallah. Now. And then, one other thing I want to mention here is when you have light and heavy letters next to each other, that's a difficult scenario because you have to move the makhraj, right? Every letter has different makhraj. Not only that, but you also have to raise the tongue or lower the tongue. So, for example, the word salah, right? Hayya ala salah, for example. So, sad has isti'la. So you raise the back of the tongue. Sa. Lam has istifal. So you have to lower it. So it's it's multiple movements you're having between the letters, right? So for example, in the adhan, hayya ala salah, salah instead of salah, right? You won't say salah, you say salah. Hayya ala salah. What about in the next? Hayya ala al-falah. Fa has istifal and lam has istifal. So it will be fa, falah, not fa, right? Not falah, falah. Yes. So that one is for the ha, right? The ha is from the throat, yes. For example, al-batil, right? The word bil-batil. So ta has isti'la, ti, right? So the tongue is raised. But ba has which quality? Ba. Out of these two. Istifal, right? Means the tongue is lowered. It's a light letter. So that means you will say batil. But what happens many times is people raise the tongue for both letters. So they'll say batil, right? Batil. They say batil. Yeah, and this is the case for many words, right? ضلال مبين. So ضاد is isti'la, ضا. But then they'll make the lam heavy also, like ضلال مبين, ضلال مبين. It takes a lot of practice to know, to first you have to identify which are heavy letters, which are light, and differentiate them. For falah, they're both light. Yeah. For salah, one is light, one is heavy. Any question about this? This is an important thing because, when we speak Urdu, we make everything almost heavy. Right? Fala, salah, zakah, right? But there's difference in lightness and heaviness, and it's coming from the tongue, not from the lips. That's the important thing. It's not coming from like swala, right? It's coming from the tongue. Saw. So when you practice next week and the week after that, I'll focus on this as well. How to make heavy letters heavy through the tongue, not through the lips. The next pair is itbaq and infitah. So itbaq means the middle of the tongue is raised. Isti'la was the back of the tongue. Now we're including middle of the tongue. Itbaq means the middle of the tongue is raised to create a full heavy sound. So it's heavier. It's the next level. It's heavier than the letters which only have isti'la. So if you notice, what are the letters of isti'la which we just talked about? These 7. Out of these 7, 4 also have itbaq. So that means out of these 7, 4 are heavier. And 3 are at the first level of heaviness, and 4 are at the next, right? The second, the higher level of heaviness. So every letter of itbaq also has isti'la. So for isti'la, the back of the tongue is raised. Itbaq, the middle of the tongue is also raised. So for example, what letters are not mentioned here? What heavy letters are not mentioned here? There were 7 total heavy letters, right? Qaf. So just the heavy letters. What were the heavy letters? There were these 4 and qaf. What other letter has a sound? Ghain, right? Gha. Lam in specific case, right? So we'll exclude lam and ra. And kha. Yeah. Right? If you go back. Jim is going to be light, like ja instead of ja, right? A. So these, what I mean is, which letters have isti'la but not itbaq? Which letters have the back of the tongue raised but not the middle of the tongue? Does that make sense? Right? There's 2 levels of heaviness, back of the tongue and middle of the tongue. So either a letter has nothing raised, that means it's istifal, or it has the back of the tongue raised, so it's isti'la, right? Or it has both. That means it has isti'la and itbaq. Okay. So for this one, I'll try to make another chart and send out an email so it'll be a little clearer. Yes, yeah, inshallah. Yes, yeah. But at least the concept that the tongue is raised, is that clear for everyone? How does the tongue raise, the middle of the tongue? For example, try to say ta, right? You feel the fullness in your mouth, right? The mouth is kind of blocked by your tongue is rising up. Like, for example, saw, dha, right? You hear that extra heavy sound. Now there is a difference between these 4 letters and the other 3 letters which don't have itbaq. For example, qaf, there's a difference between qaf and ta. There's a slight difference. Qa, right? Qalu, qa. And then ta is going to be even heavier. Ta, right? Ta, qa, ta. And then, for example, kha, as opposed to da, right? Is very heavy. These letters are very heavy. Even when you give them a kasra, they're going to be heavy. Right? Ihdina si. Ihdina الصراط المستقيم. Make sure we pronounce it heavy so it doesn't sound like a scene. It doesn't sound like ihdina si. Right? Ihdina si. Ihdina si. You have to raise the back of it. Ihdina si. Yes. So if these four have itbaq, which letters have infitah? Remember, these are mutabada, these are opposites. So if these four letters have itbaq, which letters have infitah? So, yeah, one thing I forgot to mention as review is that all the letters need to be one or the other. All the letters of Arabic, all the Arabic letters, they have to be included in the opposite pairs. So you have 28 letters. If four are itbaq, then the remainder are going to be infitah. Okay? So I didn't list them because it's majority of the letters. So infitah, middle of the tongue is lowered to create an open sound. So open would be like ba, right? Ba, it's open, it's light. Ba, and qaf also would be that. It's heavy, but it's not full and completely blocked. Qa, kha, gha. But when you have heavy, it's almost like it's closed. Right? Itbaq means to be closed. So it's like your mouth is closed because your tongue is raised. Your tongue, your back of the tongue and middle. Yeah, and so we'll practice these. But in terms of the theory and the concept, is this clear? Okay. So we did 8 letters. Sorry, 8 sifat. And mutabadda were 10. So we have 2 more. Mutabadda 10. So far we did 8. Now these are 9 and 10. This is izlaq and ismat. Izlaq and ismat. So these 2 letters usually are explained because in a way that they are related to grammar. They're related to morphology or the meaning of the words. Yeah. So what I mean is that they have to do with meaning more so than pronunciation. But you can also say that the letters of izlaq, they don't require as much pressure as the letters of ismat. Okay, so for example, take these 6 letters, right? Farra min lub. These are the letters of izlaq. So when you pronounce them, they flow a little smoother or easier. It doesn't take as much effort or pressure to pronounce them as other letters, like fa, ra, mim, noon, right? They're very easy letters, ma, na, lam, and ba. Why? Because it's from the lips. The lip letters are easy, right? Ba, mim, fa, and the letters which are the tip of the tongue, right? Like ra, lam, and noon. They flow easy. So there's not too much more. There is some more detail, but at this level, I think that's sufficient to not. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, these you'll remember them when you practice them, right? So next week, inshallah, we'll practice each letter, and I will mention that. Yes, practical. Yeah. So when you remember them is when we practice them. For example, if I say, make this letter heavy, right? You yes, this you have to remember to become teacher, but even to become a student, right? For example, if I say make a letter heavy, now you understand how to make a letter heavy. So I have to tell you that. Yes, but you would not have known how to make a letter heavy, right? That it's from the raising of the back of the tongue. Yes, exactly. So and the makhraj, for example. For example, if you yes, many people they learn Arabic just by but by practice, but to become yes, that's true. Yeah. Yes. When pronouncing the letters, for example, the makhraj, right? I can repeat the letter. You can repeat after me. Yes, but I will have to tell you put your tongue here, raise your tongue, lower the back of the tongue. So that comes by having some prior background knowledge, which is these are giving you a little taste of it. So inshallah, you'll see the benefit of it when we do the practice. Then you'll see qa, ta, example, yeah. So I know the terms can be a little overwhelming. Practice will make it. Yeah, inshallah. Yes, and you'll see the difference between the letters and letters which are next to each other in the ayah or the words, inshallah. No, but that is a very good, concern because there's 17 sifat, right? And you already memorized, 17 makharij, and there are 28 letters, and they're all different, right? And especially Arabic is not our first language, so it can be overwhelming. But this is just terms and defining terms. Then, inshallah, when we practice, they'll become clear. Okay. Yes. No, no problem, no problem. Yeah. And so I'll send the slides and you can. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, yeah. No, of course, of course. Yeah. Okay. So, alhamdulillah, we finished the sifat mutadadda. Yeah. The ghayr mutadadda are seven, and I'll just do one right now, and the rest it'll be really quick, so we can finish next week and start the recitation. This is the third last. There's two more after this. Yeah. So the first one is Safir. Yes. Yeah. So Safir. Uh, Safir is a whistling sound found in these three letters: Sad, Sin, and Za. Remember, these three letters have the same makhraj. Sad, Sin, and Za, same makhraj. So this is a slight whistling sound. For example, As, right? Ashab, Ihdina Si. It's not the same thing as like a full whistle, but there is some whistling sound. Ihdina Si. Same thing with Sin, right? Uh, um, yeah, Sa, or As. And Za also, but it's more like you sounds more like a buzzing sound, right? Yeah, سيقول السفهاء. Yes, like S. And then the Za. Za is kind of like a buzzing sound, but they'll still call it Safir. like إذا زلزلت, right? Or like as, z. So sometimes when you're pronouncing them, if it'll sound kind of flat, like you're not putting enough pressure, and the whistling sound will not come, right? Ashab, for example. Ihdina si. Some people may pronounce it so it sounds like ihdina si, ihdina si, ihdina si, ihdina sirat al mustaqim, right? The scene also. Okay. So we have 6 more, um, which will finish next. Yeah, uzlifat. Wa uzlifatil jannah. Uzlifat. Okay. Are there any questions up till this point? So when I send the slides, you can review them, the terms at least, and then when we come back next week, they'll be, you will remember slightly, inshallah. Okay. All right, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan. Thank you for bearing with today's breaks, but inshallah we will continue next week. Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, I'll have to.